Hello, friends, neighbors. John, your Witch neighbor here. Welcome down to the Nook, and welcome to March, which, of course, is traditionally Irish Whiskey Month as we're getting closer to St. Patrick's Day every day. And I thought, why don't I kick it off with a taster pack and kind of a bit of a discussion through Irish whiskey. And just here at Sobeys in St. Albert, I found this. Wonderfully, it was on sale, and I thought, oh, this is great. I shot a quick intro, as I do with shorts, and I still haven't figured out how to get in here. So why don't you guys pour some Irish? What we've got on deck here from the Busker, which is a Royal Oak distillery, is we've got a single grain, single malt, and single pot still. So I just think it's a great walk into Irish whiskey. Yeah, I know Royal Oak's a pretty big conglomerate, or it's part of the Eva Serrano Italian group, but I still think this is really cool to put out a taster pack like this. It's affordable, and I think can really give you a good idea of what's going on in Irish whiskey. So I'm gonna cut this up, and why don't you come on back with a little bit of Irish of some kind in your glass. 3, 4. Well, welcome back. As I said in the opener, I didn't really know how to get into this, so I actually had to cut it with a knife. But kind of cool, because in addition to hosting this and having a little suitcase of Irish whiskey, it even shows the casks on the back, which I think is nice information. I do wish they'd say they were natural color and non-chill filter. They don't, so I assume they're all colored and filtered. But they're released at 44.3%, which is nice. We're not just at that 40% barely legal whiskey. And again, I haven't tasted them in this order, but I appreciate the idea of here's our single grain, here's our single malt, and here's our pot still. I just think that's a great taster pack if you're getting into Irish whiskey. So let's start with their single grain. Don't know how the little bottle will show on the cutaway, but single grain, it's all from the Royal Oak Distillery. Grain, it could be a mix of grains, likely lots of corn in here, but they could be using anything, wheat, oat. The point is not malt. So this is grain whiskey from Royal Oak. A little quick history on Royal Oak. I don't know them well, but I know the Walsh family and the group behind this started in 2016 to do their own stuff. Before that, Walsh was, I think, sourcing. And then it didn't stick, and Walsh has gone their own way. They produced the Irishman and not copper pot, Writer's Tears, and so on. And then the Italian group that was in that partnership renamed the distillery Royal Oak and produces the Busker. So this is single grain. It's 44.3%. And it's been cast in ex-bourbon and ex-Marsala wine casks. Let's try this one on the nose. The wine is adding really a fruity note. The whiskey itself could also be pretty light. This is sweet, light, vanilla, floral. Yeah, thankfully there is an extra richer note in the fruiting. Otherwise, it's pretty close to their very affordable, not that exciting, just kind of almost generic Irish blend. But it's light and sweet, fruity. Let's try it on the palate. Sláinte. It's not bad, for 44.3%. It's got a little bit of grainy note, a little bit of bready note, that kind of thing. When I'm saying grainy, a little bit of husky. Little bit of slight nut mixed in with the fruits, but it stays pretty close to the nose. It's vanilla, it's sweet, it's a little floral, it's got bright fruits, so a little bit of berry, like a little bit of strawberry, a little bit of that kind of, sweet but bright fruit. I think this would be an easy, approachable whiskey for many, many people. It's a little bit, I get this in young single grains, a little bit mechanical. There's something like that, like the water itself is mechanical, but overall, I find the single grain a great start to what we're doing. Okay, let's move over to their single malt. So again, single meaning it's from the Royal Oak Distillery. No other distillery is in here. And malt, it's all malted barley. So this is closer to Scotch profiles, that kind of thing. Of course, it's made and aged in Ireland, so it's a single malt, certainly not a Scotch. Again, 44.3%. Now we've shifted casks. Here we had ex-bourbon and that Marsala wine. Here we have ex-bourbon and ex-sherry casks on their single malt on the nose. Yeah, and that's very traditional entrance single malt. This is lighter, almost honey. This we still have significant fruit, perhaps from that sherry, but it feels softer. I don't know how to explain that. How do you say a nose is softer? Maybe the fruit palate is less sharp. It's more rounded. Yeah, I know I said strawberry here, but now this is giving me all kinds of berry as well. Yeah, this has moved higher, like that, really that vanilla, sweet, sugary, that's moved that way. And this has moved into more, a bit broader of a fruit palette. Let's try it. Let's try it on the palate because maybe I need a little help. I have to sip this and breathe it around a bit to get more in the tasting notes. So Sláinte on their single malt. I prefer their single malt to their single grain. It is a little bit more substantial in the mouthfeel. The fruiting, maybe it's the sherry, is a little bit redder. So for me, add a few other types of berries, a little more tang from like a raspberry or what else would be going on in here? It just to me, while this is light and it is fruity, but sweet, honey forward, almond nut. This we've got a darker, huskier feel. It's not dark by any means. This is still light and approachable and very entrance single malt, but perhaps I'm a little bit more drawn to the mouthfeel I get with malted barley. It holds up more. It gives me a little more finish. Although I say both of these are pretty light in the finish. So finally, let's get into the Busker's pot still. Like all of these, 44.3%. And of course, pot still is home in Ireland. What I mean is it's unique to Ireland. Done, of course, in pot stills, but it has a mix of malted and unmalted barley. It's the unmalted barley that history tells us was to beat the tax man because you had to pay more tax on malted barley. But Ireland really became known for doing that special mix of malted and unmalted barley. I don't know. Oh, the casking is the same as the single malt. So we've got ex-bourbon and ex-sherry. Now, what's interesting, as I said, I think they're probably colored. The way they've colored them is this is significantly darker, or maybe not significantly, but it's darker than anything else. In fact, we've got lighter, a little more dark, and darkest yet. Now, if they weren't coloring, then I would say this must have a higher portion of ex-sherry than the single malt, and the sherry is giving color over the Marsala wine because they all have ex-bourbon. Those are just some thoughts. Let's see how the Busker from Royal Oak is their single pot. So now we really are in Ireland on the nose. They describe it as spicier, and on the nose, it is spicier, but I would also say it's greener. Yep, this becomes more traditional single malt with some sherry influence. This is grain whiskey. It actually smells a bit almost like wheat whiskey for me right now. Sweet white bread coming all the way back. This has, I'm going to say, a green grain note into it. So it's got a little bit of that, okay, wait, we're a little sharper, a little bit more citrus lemon, a little more of that green grain. Let's try it on the palate, the Busker pot still. I don't know if I've even had their pot still. In fact, I'm quite sure I haven't. So while I have tasted these, this is a new one for me. So, sláinte. Lots of flavor going on. It is spicier, clearly, across these. This is a little easy and approachable. This is better mouthfeel, sweet and more rounded. This has some spice, definitely some citrus profile, definitely some graininess I'm going to go on. And the fruits to me are more like pear and white grape. Actually, I'm going to say white grape, which is wild. Thinking sherry and ex-bourbon, I don't usually get that unless I'm getting some kind of wine finish. But it's got that white grape, sweet but spicy, little grainy. Gonna try another sip. Sláinte. That's pretty good. I think of the three up here, it will be the least approachable for non-whiskey or early in your journey whiskey drinkers. So, and that is because of the little bit of that grain note, that green note, and that spicy note. Playing around with it though, it actually is all pretty good flavor. So it's not putting me off because it's excessively alcoholic or young or getting a little bit mechanical in here. But it is absolutely the most complicated up here. The spicy nature and whatnot will come across, and it is a little bit as a burn, as a extra heat. Whereas these are produced and blended to be rather easy drinking. This is exciting me the most up here. But just saying, hey, if I'm going to share and pour a drab, actually they're single malt, it's very affordable. I still have half a regular bottle, and I think it sits around 45 bucks Canadian for a 44% single malt. That's an amazing deal right now. But the single grain, if you like grain whiskeys, I think it's nice. This is very approachable. Nice, sweet, light whiskey. This is probably, when you're thinking, Jameson blended whiskey, this is definitely the closest to that profile. This takes far more malted in the mouthfeel and rounder, and this gets some classic, interesting spice notes, but is a little aggressive and might just come across as young and a little birdie. That's my walkthrough of this kit. I have to say, I really, really like this packaging, and to be able to pick it up for a great deal. I mean, it's 3 bottles, sample pack, 35 bucks Canadian. I just think that's a great way to go, okay, talk to me. What's single grain, what's single malt, what's pot still? Thanks for joining me. I've said a lot, perhaps too much. Why don't you share with me how you feel about these classes of whiskey, or specifically, have you tried the Busker? Thanks for joining me. You guys take care.